Hey guys, how's it going? Oscar here, back with another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make snares and claps in Ableton Live using only stock plugins. We'll start off with the snare. In here, there's three parts to this patch. We've got the main body, which is this. This is our tone. Then we've got the transient, which also has a tone, but that layered with that sounds like this. And then that's the hit and like the body resonating, but now we need the sound of like this, the tail. So the tail of this there is a white noise sample, which is just sustained afterwards. There's a short envelope, and altogether it sounds like that. If you wanted to, you could probably increase the gain on this for a bit more tone. Yeah, if you wanted a bit more of like a drum and bass sort of snare. Getting into this, we'll start off with the transient, because this is where people tend to struggle with it quite a lot. So basically what I've done here is I've set this operator, it's on the standard routing, just set to fixed mode on here, and the frequency's all the way up, multi's on 1, and I've put the gain all the way maxed out. So without any processing on it, sounds like this. So just like a click. So what I've done is put the initial all the way up, increase the attack to about between 0 and like 5 milliseconds you could probably get away with. Then I've taken the sustain all the way down, and then you want to play with that until it just sounds like a sharp, just a little like flick. So what I did was I turned on the filter, and I've set it to a 24 band, so it's quite a narrow band pass on here. Set the frequency to around 1k, and I've driven the filter to the max. I've put a sound shape on it, a hard shaper, and maxed that out as well, which gives us this sound. Then to clean up the frequencies, I've put a high pass filter on there, going up to 600 Hz, and another one just shaving off the super highs. I wanted this transient to be super loud, so what I've done is I've taken a drum bus, put the maximum drive setting on, taken off the dampening because I've essentially done what this damp knob is doing in the EQ beforehand, increased the transient on it, and turned on the compressor, then added a saturator, which is an on the analog clip setting, driven it by about 10 dB, and make sure the soft clipping's on as well. And then in an EQ, like there's some peaks to that, so what I've done is just cleaned up some of those to just make it a bit more pokey. All this processing that's on after that is for the processing of the snare in general, so that's all I've done for the transient. Let's move on to the body. So what I've done here is I've tuned the snare to F. So the way you can do this, if you don't want to have a tuner on there and then like extend it, what you could do is just go into your audio effects, find a corpus, and put that on the end. Now in corpus you've got this tune section, and it tells you in this little box down here, this is the frequency up here, and then it's also telling you the key of what that frequency is in this little box down here. So what I've done is found an F1, sorry, not an F1, it was a F2. So 176. Oh, so that's 14 cents above. So if I knock this down to an F2, it's 174.6. What I've done here is I've tuned that to 174, so it's a perfect F. So you can get rid of that now. What I've done with this sound is shaped it like the transient so that there's a high attack on it. So the initial is taken from negative infinite to 0 dB. Then I've given it a bit more space to breathe over the transient, because the tone of the snare needs to be lasting longer than the transient. I've added a bit of a pitch envelope. This leading into the filter section, I've put on a bandpass filter set to around about the 174. Let me just clean that up. 174 on a 24 dB per octave slope. The pitch envelope is sweeping from The initial was set to 48 semitones, so turning that off. Just sounds a bit more like a drum hit when you turn that on. That's running into a saturator on a soft sine setting with us being driven. That's without it. That's with it. Just adds a couple of extra harmonics in the top end. And that's it for that sound. It's just to add a bit of tonality to the snare, because without it, it doesn't quite sound like a snare. With the tail, all I've done is added a white noise thing in the oscillator. Left it pretty standard. I've just, in the filter section, what I've done is added a bandpass on the 12 dB per octave setting and driven the filter fully on the OSR setting. For the decay time, it's a bit of a play around, but anywhere between 200 and 350 milliseconds of decay will sound somewhere in the ballpark of a snare. What I've done to process the entire thing as a whole is I've added a high pass filter, so just cleaning up any of the low end that's been introduced by this sound. Just be careful not to take away too much of the low end. Then I've added a channel EQ, which is just boosting the highs. Now the reason why I've done this is because the channel EQ has a saturation algorithm within it to make it sound more like a mixing console's EQ, so there's a bit of colour added when you boost the highs. So I've just boosted it to get that extra saturation in there. In this next EQ, what I've done is cleaned up a bit more of the low end, because whenever you're playing with this low shelf, it does have a sound to it. So I'm just cleaning up any of the extra sound that's coming in through that, and then I'm just taking away some of that extra fizz. And I'm not cutting it out with a high pass. All I'm doing is just reducing how much is being fed through. What I've done is added a saturator on top of that to have more harmonics. Gives it a little extra punch on the analog clip setting. So yeah, that's it for this sound, for the snare. If you've got anything to add to this, leave a comment in the comment section below, leave a like on the video, and subscribe for more tutorials on drum synthesis. So let's move on to the clap now. So the clap's interesting because it's actually quite a hard sound to emulate within a synth. What I'm going to do is break down one patch, and then I'll go through each of the processings within it. So if we solo one of these patches, all this is a bunch of operators on a white noise oscillator. Every envelope is set to the same. They're all doing the exact same thing. It's pretty bog standard, just the initials all the way up, the attack's at 0, decay's about 100 milliseconds. You can play about the decay time if you want. All I've done is high passed it, and then knocked off some of the high end on this. So for each patch, all I've done is taken an EQ and high passed it, so that only the high end of the white noise is coming through. Within each one of these operators, I've added an echo with the feedback set to 0 and wet at 100. And what this is doing is only allowing one delay to come in, but it's because the feedback is at 0 and the dry wet's at 100, it's only allowing out the delayed signal, so it's not playing the original signal. What this is doing is essentially playing this sound. Like, this sound is being played without going through an echo, whereas this sound is, and there is a 34 millisecond delay on it. Each one of these echoes is set to the same thing, but on different delay settings. So you're hearing like what would sound like more than one person clapping at a time. And then what I've done in here, because what I've done is duplicated it 4 times, so it sounds like one clap and another clap. And then on these ones below is I've changed the EQ settings on some of these groups, and then on each individual group here, I've changed the echo time based on each group. So you can see here, this one has no echo, this one has a 15 millisecond echo, and this one has a 36 millisecond echo on each group. So it sounds like multiple people clapping. And then I've just processed the entire group by band passing out the frequencies that I wanted, putting a notch somewhere in the middle with this channel EQ, saturating it to the point of no return by putting an analog clip on it and driving it all the way, and then a bit of reverb to give it some space. Now, the saturator introduced a load of noise, so what I wanted to do was bring down some of the gain that was being introduced, and then because claps aren't extremely transient like they are for like that initial hit, but this sound was too transient without the drum bus, so I just took the transients down and added a bit more drive to sort of tighten up that reverb by also putting a compressor on there. Actually, I think it probably sounds better without the drum bus, so ignore the drum bus. So there we go. That's how you make a clap with Ableton's operator, and how to make a snare. So if you enjoyed the video, guys, leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe. Check out the Patreon. All my links for my socials are in the description below. And yeah, stick around for more videos. Peace.